the BCCI announced the WIPL and the number of matches. We are seeing the WBBL going ahead in Australia. What is your take on this? I mean, yes, it is not ideal. We do not want a clash. Hello and welcome to this special edition of Free Hit on Gulf News. And today I've got somebody who we've got to celebrate. We've got to celebrate on this show because she's just been inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame. I mean, one of the legends of the women's game, Lisa Sthalekar. Welcome to the show. And firstly, many, many congratulations. Tell me your first feeling when you got the news of this induction into the ICC's Hall of Fame.
Thanks very much for having me on the show today. To be honest, very shocked. Felt that I was still quite young and had only just retired from the game, and that there were probably plenty of other females that deserved the honour, but certainly humbled by the recognition.
Do you think that this, this induction of yours and also the fact that finally we are seeing more and more women getting recognised will actually give a fillip to the women's game?
You can see that there is certainly a trend in acknowledgement. So obviously the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame only started in 2009 and the first female was 2010. So they've had one every year, I think, bar 1 year. But Catherine Fitzpatrick was inducted last year, and I was actually there attending ICC meetings and saw her and congratulated her. Maybe the pandemic has made us all more acutely aware of what's going on around the world, but certainly I've received a lot of love and support, especially on social media, on all the different platforms. And it's been really nice to receive so many messages from so many different people across the globe.
In fact, I can tell you this, I don't know if I should say, I was part of the nominations committee and all of us nominated you unanimously. Whether it's Claire Connor, whether it's myself, whether it's Jeff Allardyce, who was deputizing for the ICC CEO, whether it was Anil Kumble, all of us nominated you unanimously. So that's something I'm putting on record for the first time.
Wow.
You were a favorite. One thing that the whole world, and I had a bit of a spat on Twitter with Alyssa Healy on this, though it wasn't meant to be a spat at all. The BCCI announced the WIPL and the number of matches. We are seeing the WBBL going ahead in Australia. What is your take on this? I mean, yes, it is not ideal. We do not want a clash. But from the standpoint of India, only a handful of our girls have WBBL contracts. And if the BCCI did not do it, it would then be accused, oh, you know what, you're doing it in Dubai, but you're ignoring the women's game. It is not ideal in any way, but what is your take on this for this particular year, which is a disruptive year? Yeah,
it is a strange year. And look, I've been part of covering the IPL, and when the first game was played only a couple of years ago, it was one game, two teams during 2 p.m. Mumbai heat. No one was attending. Last year, obviously, included another team, played it at 7 p.m. during the finals. Everyone's used to clicking on the TV and just watching IPL matches, and to get the women's games there, it's certainly, we saw a huge influx. The fact that India didn't also get the opportunity to travel to England because of the pandemic, I'm sure there are a number of Indian contracted players and domestic players going, what's happening to women's cricket in India? When's our next game? When's our next camp? There was no date to kind of put in your diary and go, right, this is what I'm working towards. The IPL normally never clashes with the WBBL. This is really a strange year. Purely, if you were to think domestic Indian players, has to go ahead. They have to have something. So credit to the BCCI for doing that. I do understand Alyssa Healy's disappointment in the sense that the WBBL is always held in October, November, up until early December. I guess the thoughts are maybe from international players, why doesn't the BCCI just do a fully fledged women's IPL, maybe hold it in that February time period when the Women's World Cup now has been moved, similar to what they're doing now with the Men's T20 World Cup. They're putting the IPL there. So if you want to sell the best product, if you want to showcase the best players in a women's T20 exhibition matches, which is really the women's IPL games, you want everyone there. You want the best players. So unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. But as I've said a number of times, it will open the door for a lot more domestic Indian players. And we saw last T20 exhibition matches, Shafali Verma come onto the scene, and we saw her then almost be player of the tournament in the T20 World Cup. I'm sure the tournament will unearth plenty more talent there. So whilst it's frustrating, even as a broadcaster who loves going to India and wants to see the Indian domestic circuit thrive, it's not ideal, but at least they've got some cricket, and that's the main thing.
I absolutely agree with you. In fact, I would be the first person to put my hand up and say I would want to watch Elisa Healy play in this competition because the final innings, I mean, she's a star. We want the best players to play. On the other hand, having spoken to all the Indian girls, I mean, from Mithali to Jhulan to Veda to Smriti to everyone, I know exactly what you said, that the England matches getting cancelled, and I was getting calls. Do you know what's happening? Do you know what's happening? When are we playing? So they were itching to go out there. So they need something for them. I mean, It's a strange one, and I hope this doesn't happen again, because we need all tournaments and at a spaced out manner so that we get maximum cricket. Your thoughts on Beyond the Boundary? I mean, firstly, your dresses were beautiful. Having said that, that comment about Thailand, that, they bring a smile to your face. And when I see that, you were saying that in February, March, and when I see that in context 6 months down the line, that smile means a hell lot more to each one of us. The pandemic has robbed us of that smile. So if anyone can bring a smile to our face, whether it's Chantam, whether it's Tipo, whether it's anyone, it means a hell lot. So your thoughts on that docu?
It was an interesting one because it was originally just for an ICC kind of TV, recapturing basically, hopefully, a really momentous moment in women's cricket. The fact that they were trying to break the world record, got very close with the 86,000, but still ticked so many boxes. And I think the main thing is, in this pandemic, everyone's been thriving, wanting live sport. But you know what? The last kind of real ICC event, big event where there was a huge crowd, was that T20 World Cup. So I think everyone, even the Indians, I know that probably didn't want to watch the final, they've all watched it and they've all enjoyed it, because it takes us down memory lane when things were really good, things were exciting, life was kind of normal. So I think the timing of that documentary was perfect. Ideally, as they move forward and the ICC start to realise there is an appetite for women's sport and women's live events, hopefully the documentary for the next World Cup or the next T20 World Cup, they'll be able to invest a bit more money to not only follow 4 teams, but to follow all of the teams, and maybe have a little mini series of, each one in their road, because everyone goes through a different journey. In an ICC event, there are so many dramas within that little nucleus of players, and it'd be great to share it with the rest of the world that are starting to really fall in love with women's cricket.
Now, if I can ask you as a broadcaster, I mean, when we take a look at world sport, be it the Bundesliga, be it the Serie A, be it the La Liga, be it the EPL, I mean, all of these leagues at the start had a bit of a hiccup. There were some tests which came positive before the bio bubbles were put in place, and eventually all got sorted. We saw live sport back. We've seen that happen with the Chennai Super Kings, 12, 13 cases. Does that make you apprehensive of the IPL? For example, I am not. I mean, I think this has happened at the start. The bio bubble is now in place. They will get it right. They will be in quarantine. Tests will be done. People will move on. So the question is, are you alarmed? Are you worried at the same time? Or do you think, no, this actually emphasizes the importance of the bio bubble and how sacrosanct it should be, and the tournament should go on as planned?
I think it's just reflective of this pandemic worldwide. Now, I'm fortunate. I'm in Australia, where the numbers are really low compared to obviously India, America, Brazil, those type of places. This virus is able to transmit so easily. So people flying across to Dubai, people traveling in airports, people coming in close proximity, there's going to be some level of exposure. The great thing about the bio bubble is once you're there, you get the tests, and then you've got to isolate. And once you're there, hopefully, fingers crossed, and we've seen in other sports as well, once you're in it for a while, then everyone can kind of go on with playing the sport, playing the tournament, playing the series that they need. But there is going to be hiccups, but there's hiccups around
everywhere.
us constantly. So we're going to have to keep adapting. And this is the new norm, unfortunately.
If I can sort of push you a little bit more on, I mean, I'm in touch with a number of leading players, and I've been asking this question that, you get yourself quarantined, and it applies to you also as a broadcaster whenever you decide to travel next. Lisa Guha was telling me you can't go out for a meal. There is only a half an hour window during, when you're staying in the same hotel. So it's a very rigid new normal. I mean, to what extent, while we all want sport back, it is an industry and it far outweighs any other consideration. What do you think is the impact on mental health, and how significant is that? I mean, are we at one level treating players, commentators, all of the stakeholders here as robots and not perhaps are showing adequate importance to mental health? Or how do we deal with that challenge of this kind of bio bubble for 85 days?
It's a fine line. My last game that I covered was the T20 World Cup final, so 8th of March, and I've been out of work. I've lost months of work. I am going over to the IPL. Obviously, I have to quarantine, I think 6 or 7 days there, and then when I come back, 2 weeks. And that's for a period of maybe 3 weeks of work. So 3 weeks in quarantine, 3 weeks of work, 6 weeks in total, really. You talk about mental health. The mental health of people not having work, not having an income, not being able to pay the bills, like I said, it's a fine line. So I'm going stir crazy. I need to get back out on the road. How will I cope in quarantine? I don't know. I'm going to have to figure it out. 2 weeks, even though when I've landed in Australia and I'll be in a hotel in my home city, paying $3,000 for that experience, I've got to fork that out. I've got to keep myself entertained. This is where you require really close friends, family, to be able to keep you entertained whilst you're in quarantine. Hopefully work will be busy enough for me to keep myself occupied. Otherwise, I'm quite happy to do Zoom chats every day if you want to buy the time.
I was chatting with Sachin, who was on my show, actually, Inspiration, the other day, and we were talking about the IPL, that it's not only about the Virat Kohli and the MS Dhoni. It is also about, take the media fraternity, you, me. Each of us have been out of incomes and livelihoods and work. And it is important for the fraternity for sports to come back. I mean, in that sense, Sachin's comment was that, look, we will talk about numbers, but different numbers, not cases and recoveries, but about scoring rates and asking rates. And it will bring positivity back, at least a semblance of positivity back. That while correctives, yes, but alarm, no. I mean, we need sport back for this larger industry to survive. And I thought that is what the IPL is all about. Would you agree?
Sport brings people together. It brings people from all different cultures, backgrounds, race, religion, everything. And probably in this time when we've had obviously the Black Lives Matter movements, we need some positivity. Sport allows us that because there is a winner, there is a loser. From a territorial point of view, you have your team, you want to cheer for them, and sometimes it takes you away from what your reality is. And like I said, sport really does bring us all together. Like even for all of us as broadcasters and crew members, it's a family away from home, and I haven't seen my second family for months. So it does bring us all together, and it will certainly help everyone's mood. Obviously, the IPL is the biggest T20 domestic competition in the world. The best players go there. Everyone wants to be a part of it. So not only will it help, the billions of people over in India to kind of focus on something other than COVID case numbers, in the 70,000s per day, it'll get them to focus on something a little bit more positive to be able to get through this difficult time.
My last question, and this is a personal one. What are you feeling? I mean, you'll get on a flight again to do what you love to do. At the same time, the world is a very different world. You've got to wear masks and sanitizers and N95 and quarantine and all of that. Give me your sense. Is it apprehension? Is it butterflies in your tummy when you get into that commentary box, which is a changed, socially distanced commentary box? What's your sense?
I'm looking forward to it, to be honest. Like I said, I've been going stir crazy. Yeah, it's going to be a different world. Harsha Bogle and myself won't be able to go shopping in the airport, so I would imagine that most of the shops are shut down. There won't be that many people there. It is going to be different. COVID tests, I think we'd have to do a number of tests, not only before, but also whilst we're there. So a bit of a brain tickle regularly. So it is going to be different, but you know, I think, and you know, I'm going to have to get back to you on how I really do cope, but I think it's going to be a positive thing for me to see all of the people that, you know, I have missed. Like, I live at home by myself, and obviously there were certain points here in Australia where we were on lockdown and we couldn't have any family or friends here. So I was all by myself. So I'm looking forward to interacting with people, even if it's through a glass and we can just wave. We can't hug or anything like that, but at least the interaction between other human beings is what I'm craving.
Absolutely agree. In fact, can't agree more. I think it'll be a great experience. We want sport back. For me, this is actually an opportunity. An opportunity. I was having a chat with Star Sports boss Uday Shankar, saying, look, I mean, what we've done in the past is we've only focused on the stadium. But with technology, you're expanding the fan base in a manner that you're integrating fans from around the world. So when science eventually wins, and science will, pandemics have always come and gone, we will have a world where sport is stronger, sport is bigger, sport is better. And I'm confident, Lisa, you will have a bigger role to play coming months in the better world that we will have in maybe 21. But for the moment, wish you more power, more strength, more commitment to your cause. And once again, many congratulations for doing tremendous service to the game. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Thanks for having me.